Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving deep into the historical roots and literary evolution of Lord Murugan. We're going to explore an incredible narrative of cultural synthesis. We'll trace exactly how an ancient regional protector transformed over centuries into a universally recognized symbol of divine wisdom, courage, and leadership. Here's how we're going to break this down today. First, an introduction to Lord Murugan. Then, his origins in ancient texts, followed by his early identity as a fierce warrior deity. Next, we'll look at his symbolism and Puranic evolution, followed by the cross-cultural synthesis, and finally, his legacy as the eternal flame of heritage. Let's jump right into Section 1, Introduction to Lord Murugan. Today, Lord Murugan is celebrated with immense devotion across the globe. He is instantly recognized by his 6 faces, his peacock, and his supreme divine knowledge. But a recent film sparked a pretty intense controversy with one specific claim, that Murugan was, quote, born in the north and worshipped in the south. So what's the actual story here? To find the truth, we aren't going to take sides. Instead, we're going to neutrally examine the primary sources, specifically diving right into ancient Tamil Sangam literature to see what the earliest records actually reveal. That brings us to Section 2, Origins in Ancient Texts. To find historical truth, we literally have to travel back thousands of years to the absolute foundational texts of Tamil culture. And what's truly fascinating here is that in the Tolkappiyam, which is the oldest surviving Tamil grammar text, the earliest recorded name for this deity isn't actually Murugan, it's Sayan. You see, the author of this text didn't just write rules for language, they wrote rules for life, deeply connecting human existence to the natural geography around them. There's this brilliant ancient quote that roughly translates to Sayan presiding over the misty mountain realms. This text definitively establishes Sayan not just as some passing myth, but as the supreme indigenous guardian of the misty mountain peaks, literally the highest points of the ancient Tamil landscape. The ancients actually divided their world into specific ecosystems, and each one had its own presiding energy. Sayan was firmly established as the lord of the Kurinji, the mountainous regions. This proves he was fundamentally rooted in the local soil and indigenous culture long before any external influences ever arrived. Moving on to Section 3, the fierce warrior deity. Let's look at the Sangam era, which spanned roughly 300 BCE to 300 CE because a crucial piece of etymological history emerges here. Today, if you say the word Murugu, people immediately think of divine beauty. But scholars note that in these ancient texts, Murugu exclusively meant fragrance. When referring to the deity himself, the root word was actually muru, which meant to twist, to break, or to conquer enemies in battle. He was a god of righteous anger, a martial powerhouse. Now notice how radically different this early Sangam depiction is from the modern imagery we're used to. Instead of a 6-faced god riding a peacock, we find a fierce, red-clad warrior charging into battle on a massive elephant. Ancient poems vividly describe him wearing garments as purely red as the Kundramani seed, adorned in crimson mountain flowers. They even describe his elephant's white tusks being stained red from piercing enemies on the battlefield. It's a completely different, highly visceral aesthetic. He wasn't just a distant god sitting in the sky, either. He was actively woven into their daily survival. During times of mysterious illness or emotional distress, communities performed a ritual called the Velan Viriadal. The shaman, known as the Velan, would enter deep trance, divine the cause of the community's suffering, and then prescribe offerings. This usually involved red rice mixed with animal blood to appease this fierce force and bring healing. Let's explore how this shifts in Section 4, Symbolism and Puranic Evolution. As the centuries passed, this fierce mountain warrior began an extraordinary spiritual and literary transformation. By tracking this timeline, we can objectively observe how later texts systematically introduced new, wider northern traditions into his existing mythos. For 600 years, the literature firmly maintained the image of the one-faced warrior on an elephant. But suddenly, in the later Sangam period, texts like the Parapadal appear, and the narrative fundamentally changes. These later texts are actually the first and only Sangam-era literature to mention him being born in Mount Kailash from the divine sparks of Shiva's third eye. They introduce him as this radiant commander of celestial forces, and they bring in Devasana, the daughter of Indra, as his consort. This marks a profound synthesis, seamlessly blending the ancient Tamil warrior with expansive Sanskrit Puranic mythologies. Naturally, the visual symbols evolve dramatically during this era. He transforms into the supreme deity of jnana, or ultimate knowledge, and Shakti, representing courageous action. The 6 faces appear, allowing him to oversee Vedic rituals. The elephant is replaced by his iconic peacock, which beautifully symbolizes victory over the human ego. The rooster flag is introduced to represent spiritual awakening. And of course, the vel becomes his ultimate spear of knowledge and protection. This evolution perfectly encapsulates an indigenous mountain guardian gracefully adopting expansive Puranic elements. Think about it. On one hand, we have the fierce, deeply regional Sangam warrior married to the local tribal girl Vali. On the other hand, we have the highly symbolic Puranic deity of wisdom married to the celestial Devasena. Both identities merge together seamlessly in the cultural consciousness to form the Lord Murugan we revere today. Which brings us nicely to Section 5, the cross-cultural synthesis. Understanding this exact timeline helps us address the modern debate neutrally and factually. Scholars note that specific botanical references verify these Puranic stories were layered onto the existing Tamil deity much later in history. It's like a historical detective story. For instance, the Thirumoragathrupade mentions garlands made with jatika, which is nutmeg. While nutmeg was not introduced to Tamil Nadu until around the 3rd or 4th century CE, that tiny, seemingly insignificant detail mathematically proves the texts containing the Northern Puranic myths were written centuries after Murugan was already being worshipped as the indigenous Seon. So, the texts indicate he wasn't brought from the north to the south. Rather, his profound influence in the south radiated outward. He anchored himself in the sacred geography of Tamil Nadu through his 6 holy abodes, the Arapadavidu, which includes powerful spiritual centers like Palani, Swamimalai, and Tirchendur. It was an outward expansion of reverence that captivated broader spiritual traditions. It was a beautiful cultural exchange, not an inward colonization of myth. And finally, Section 6, Eternal Flame of Heritage. From the ancient red-clad Seon of the Kurinji Mountains, he has grown into a massive global pillar of cultural resilience. Today, he's worshipped with intense discipline and devotion everywhere from Tamil Nadu to Sri Lanka, Malaysia, and Singapore. He's honored by millions during massive, awe-inspiring festivals like Thaipusam and Skanda Sashti. As the texts reflect, Lord Murugan stands as the eternal flame of Tamil heritage, guiding humanity with wisdom, valor, and divine clarity. I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder as we conclude this explainer on the captivating evolutionary mythos of Lord Murugan. If a single deity can evolve from a fiercely localized mountain warrior into a universal symbol of philosophical wisdom, how else has ancient language silently shaped the modern world we revere? Next time you encounter an ancient symbol, ask yourself what incredible layers of history, geography, and language are just waiting to be uncovered beneath its surface. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and always keep seeking the knowledge behind the myths.